Um, so honeybees are struggling. And that's kind of a contentious issue when you talk to some of the folks. They say, well, not really. We've learned to split them and take care of them and grow colonies, and we can fix it. If we can just, the big guys say, if we could just make enough money to make our hive count grow, we do so. But today it's hard for them to make the big folks that have a lot of hives. It's hard for them to grow because the price of honey is so low commercially across the country. But since 2007, a lot of the bees in the world have died, and they continue to die. It's a kind of an equation of things, we think. Forage. I know when I was a young man, every yard, every field we cultivated had clover in it. Every ditch, there was clover everywhere. Now, thanks to Roundup in yards and on golf courses, and Roundup use and other herbicide and other uses, the forage is gone. It's just not there. So these huge big cornfields you see are deserts to bees, field corn, and they just don't have the forage they used to have. And so that's one of the reasons, a lack of forage. Chemicals are everywhere. I mean, they're just everywhere. And this is a good book on chemicals. One of the perplexing things is what happens when you combine 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 of these chemicals. What's the effect? It's usually synergistic. So the effect of 2 together is far more than the effect of either one of the 2. And so a couple of years ago, I was talking with one of the farmers up where we have quite a bit of alfalfa, and our beehives are there. And he said, yeah, I was spraying for weeds the other day, and I thought, well, I've got some old jars of pesticide up there. I may as well use those. So he put them in there. He said, I may have put this herbicide in there too, and he put the herbicide in. So the effect of that is significant. And so chemicals is the problem for us today. We lose hives every year for chemical loss. You can see the mass losses of them, and they're going to get into it, and you can just manage the best you can around what we have. Diseases and vectors, the mites, and the 27 viruses. The vector that is most harmful to our beehives is the skunk. Skunk is the only animal that will eat bees. We've lost a whole beehive in a day, 24-hour period to skunks. So you can do some things that we'll talk about later to help that, but that's a significant problem. You know, the mite killed half of our beehives 20 years ago, and then management too. So if you don't manage your beehives, they probably won't exist long. So you have to look at them. Our rule of thumb is to try to look at every hive every 10 days, at least every 2 weeks, so that if something's not right, something's not happening as it should, you catch it early. So 10 days is the general rule. Just look at it. You don't have to spend a lot of time there, but just make sure you have a healthy hive, a lot of bees, a queen that's laying well, and everything seems to be in balance in there. We'll talk more about that later. Now, all that together took on the term of colony collapse disorder. So it's kind of falling away now as a term that's in general use. The only organization that still uses it is USDA. Most of their folks really don't know a lot about bees, and so they have a program, ELAP program, and so if you lose a beehive in a year, they'll replace that beehive for you up to $274 a hive. And so you have to convince them, though, that the loss was due to colony collapse disorder. That really doesn't exist so much anymore. But so that's been the problem. In 1944, there were 5.5 million hives. Today, about 3 million. Part of that is because I can even remember, believe it or not, I can remember in World War II, my mother and aunts and other farmers were encouraged to keep bees because sugar was rationed during World War II. And so some of that's accounted for by the circumstances of that era. But the fact is we have somewhere about half of the hives that we had then. So I think, so this is the total of U.S. managed honeybee colonies loss estimates by year. And that goes all the way through the 2018, 2019. So you can see well, the smooth curve is up. The AD family had 3 years ago had 93,000 colonies. They now have 84,000. They lost half of their colonies in 1 year. and you can't sustain those kinds of losses. It was a rough winter for them, and they had a lot of the bees further south. The further south they come, the greater the losses they found commercially. But what that says is that you have to manage them and manage them really well to keep them alive. So